How's everybody doing? Good, good. Well, I'm thankful to Coach Heupel for blessing me and my family with this opportunity to come to the University of Tennessee. This is a rich and storied traditional program, and we're fired up to be here.
Questions? We'll start with Adam right here. And I guess to help Coach, if you could state your name and affiliation so we can get familiar.
Adam Sparks, Knoxville News Sentinel. Welcome to Knoxville.
How you doing, Adam?
Good. You've moved up the ranks, obviously, in your career. You've done D2, you did FCS, you've moved up in conferences. I'm curious where, like in the SEC, in your goals or your dreams as a coach, was the SEC ever part of that?
For sure. I think when I started coaching, you always want to have your feet where you're planted at that point in time, but you always have your end goals in terms of the aspirations that you want to get to. And, of course, being able to get to the SEC was always a dream and a goal of mine, and I just worked hard every single day to be able to reach that goal.
Austin and Noah.
Austin Price.
Hey, Austin.
Coach, when you were growing up, not too far from Knoxville, kind of what were your memories of Tennessee football growing up? What did you think of Tennessee? And, just kind of what have you found since you've been here for the last couple of weeks?
When I was growing up, being able to watch them on Saturdays, and in my opinion, it was RBU. I mean, you turn around and you watch Jamal Lewis when I was growing up, Travis Henry when I was growing up, Travis Stevens when I was growing up, seeing them run through that power T to come in here, and they were beating up on everybody. And it was one of those deals that you had admiration for the program. It was one of those deals I wanted to be able to come here and play, but I wasn't good enough to play here. I had a teammate in high school that played here, so I always had very, very fond memories of watching Tennessee on television.
Coach, Noah Taylor, Vol Report. Just kind of what's kind of been your first impressions of this room? I know it's been a couple weeks, but this running back room, what's kind of impressed you about those guys so far?
Hard working. They come to work every single day, and they push one another. Really good young men in the room with good character, and their personalities are really good. They gel together, and it's a brotherhood in that room.
Coach Brent Hubbs with VolQuest. I'm
doing?
curious, because you've made the transitions you've made, this is not new, transitioning in and getting to know new guys. What is the keys to creating your room as you go to a new job like this?
Number one, having them understand me as a person, what I'm about, kind of telling them my story and my background, and then being able to get to know them, not as a football player, but as a person. Getting to know them from the inside out and understand, what's the trials and tribulations that they've had to go through as young men, what's their family dynamic and background, and then what drives them and push them. Because I tell them all the time, I'm not getting on you as a person when we're out there between those white lines. I'm getting on you as the player. As a player, you're never going to be right. We always got to coach you hard, but as a person, I got to love you. And I got to love you as a player as well, but I got to get on your tail as well.
Patrick and Ben.
Patrick Brown with 24/7 Sports. Coach, I think you were at Western Carolina and you guys played here
Yep.
A few years ago. What do you remember about that experience, having had some familiarity with Tennessee, and did you think at that point that one day you may end up coaching here, wanted to end up coaching here?
Well, number one thing I remember is we got our tail ran out the stadium. So that's what I remember. And honestly, it's kind of been this way my whole entire career. God has always given me a preview of places that I'll end up. And I kind of had a little feeling when we was here that night, not knowing at what point in time that would happen. But I kind of had a feeling at some point in time it would. All I had to do was work hard, and it ended up coming true.
Coach Ben McKeague, Vols 24/7. I'm
doing?
curious of your perception of Josh Heupel's offense and how he uses the running backs. There's some talk out there that they don't like to run the ball because of the up-tempo stuff, but obviously the numbers say otherwise. I'm curious of what your perception of the offense and how the running backs are utilized has been before you got here.
My perception of the offense was that it was always dynamic, and it was always physical in terms of the run game. I mean, when you sit there and you look at all the different parts that kind of go along with it and the mechanics that make up this offense, it was always one of those ones that I felt like gave the defense issues from a lot of different areas. And I know a lot of people just look at it from the tempo standpoint, but it's a lot of things that goes into it that makes it hard for the defense to have to defend. So it was one of those ones that I wanted to learn and get used to and get comfortable with as well.
Hey, Coach. Karthik Venkatram,
How you doing?
WBIR TV. What should Vol fans expect of you as a coach as your time here at Tennessee?
High energy, detail oriented. I'm gonna push my guys to their full potential. The thing about us is we're always gonna be aggressive as a unit, and we're always gonna do things the right way. And that's the number one deal. We want to be detail oriented. We want to be fast. We want to be physical, and we want to play aggressive.
Hi, Coach. In the back here, John
How you
Satori, WVLT TV. How are you?
You doing good?
Good. Wherever you've been, the offense has not been just, you've seen a lot of different offenses. Obviously, this one is another challenge for you. How does your job change depending on the different offenses, whether it be an air raid, a West Coast, whatever it may be? Does the mission kind of stay the same with you?
It does. Always get our guys to play hard is number one. Being detail-oriented is number two, and make sure we're doing a really good job of just doing our job. No matter what offense we're playing in, we always just got to make sure we do what's required of us to be able to go out there and execute and get our job done.
Dylan Samson, how much has he been a help in your transition? What was your initial impression of him?
Dylan has been really good. So me and Dylan actually had a prior relationship. So I actually recruited him when I was at the University of Louisville. So we had a relationship prior, but he's been really, really good in terms of helping this transition. He's actually a coach on the field and a coach in the classroom as well, so that's been easy.
Coach, you mentioned the guys that played in the late '90s, and I'm sure you know others that played here, and even a guy like Jalen Wright who just performed well at the combine. How important is it to reach out to all those former tailbacks, and is that something you kind of foresee doing? Have you done that at previous stops?
You know what? I think that's important. To get the understanding of what made this place so special in terms of from a running back position. That's somewhere at previous spots I haven't necessarily done that, but that's something that I definitely plan on doing here once I'm able to breathe for a little bit.
Coach, you were asked about the kind of the room you're inheriting. You talked about Dylan, but you got a lot of young guys too that don't have a lot of experience. What are some of the pros and cons of being a guy that's coming in, taking in a position room like that where you've got some young guys that you can kind of coach up and develop to be ready to play?
I think that's awesome because you get to mold them and shape them. I think every single day is a learning opportunity and every day is a day to get better. And I think that's the way we approach these next, with spring practice coming up. Every single day is a day for us to get 1% better. And everybody in that room is young in some form or fashion, whether that's playing experience on the field or just getting here. And I think that situation is really good. So we just got to take the bull by the horns and just go learn every single day and work.
You mentioned calling those guys once you get your feet settled a little bit. How has the last, week and a half, 2 weeks been? Where are you with the offense? Where are you with knowing kind of where you're at day to day and what you're doing right now?
It's been drinking water through a fire hose. From the time that I stepped in this building, when I was blessed with the opportunity to get this job, it was all gas, no brakes. But understanding kind of the rhythm and the flow of the day was number one. Number two is being able to understand the offense, which every single day that we're in here, that's getting better and better. I think all offenses are the same per se in certain aspects of it. You just got to learn the language of the offense. So that's the portion that's been good. Every week that I've been here is getting slower for me, which is good. I'm talking about the whole entire transition, learning my way around Knoxville, learning my way around the building, learning the faces in the building. So the more that I'm here, the more I'm getting familiar with it.
Wes Rucker with 24/7 Sports.
How we doing?
When you looked at Cincinnati, we were at Cincinnati last season. Those numbers, numbers don't always tell the whole story, but that was an offense that didn't throw the ball probably as well as you wanted to. You're still able to run it pretty much every week. How are you able to run the ball and get success on the ground when obviously people know that's what's mostly coming?
It's a mentality. You understand that sometimes you're going to have to run the ball when you want to, and then you're going to have to run the ball when everybody in the stadium knows that you're running it. And I think that's something that you got to work on every day. That's something as a whole entire unit that we'll take pride in. But I think it's the pride and performance piece that comes along with that, the understanding that, you're going to have to make somebody miss. You're going to have to break a tackle. You're going to have to go pad +2 and be able to accelerate my feet through contact. And then still be able to get those yards after contact that we talk about a lot. So whether everybody in the stadium knows that we're running the ball or throwing it, it's just a mentality that you got to adjust to and adapt to be able to, execute from a running back standpoint.
When you're out recruiting and watching tape and evaluating guys, what are some traits that you're really keeping an eye out for that you really want to bring into Tennessee? What do you want out of your running backs?
I think one is the mental and the physical toughness standpoint of it. Two is football acumen, how smart are you, and then the retention piece of it. Then change of direction, short area quickness. I think everybody, when they look at a running back, they look at, can he hit the home run? Can he take 180 yards? yes, you look at that, but what are the other intangibles that come along with that, with short area quickness, playing behind your pads, good body control, good balance, and then being able to be willing to put your face on somebody in pass protection. Those are the things that kind of make up in terms of a high school back as you're evaluating and you're looking for one.
Ryan Callahan, 24/7 Sports.
How we doing?
What's your approach to rotating backs? Do you have kind of a preference of how many you like to play at a time, and how you kind of handle that from game to game?
Yeah, I think it's all dependent upon the offense, and then what Coach Hyper wants to do, and then what Coach. We just kind of flow from that standpoint. In the past, we rotated to keep guys fresh, but at different offenses that I've been in, whether it's a no-huddle, up-tempo offense, we've been able to play, multiple guys and keep them fresh, but it all depends on kind of how we're flowing offensively, and then who's in rhythm. That's a big piece of it. You never want to get a guy out of rhythm. I always talk about when you're playing running back, you kind of get in that groove to where it feels like you can just feel where the seams and holes are opening at. So we go from that standpoint, and then who got the hot hand? You never want to, pull off the hot hand. You want to let them eat.
I know you've had a time crunch. Have you had a chance to look at film of the guys, the running backs you're inheriting yet, or will you look at film of those guys?
Yes, I have. In terms of going along learning the offense, that's kind of the process of learning. You're learning them as you're learning the offense as well, and you're looking at the things that they do really, really well. And it's kind of hand in hand from that standpoint. And I'll continue to watch film as we go along as well.
What was your impressions just of Dylan Samson and just watching him in game film?
I think you see the explosiveness jump off tape. I think you see the tenacity in terms of as he's attacking defenses, the willingness to put his face on people and go in there and block. I think the traits that you see and what he's shown is what jumped off to me on tape.
Thank you, Coach.
Awesome. Appreciate y'all.